just seems to me that there's just been so much in terms of new events, pretty much every week for larger brand owners, brand operators. What do you think? Are you seeing that too?
I think so. I think events have always been in our space and in a lot of industries. I've seen a lot more pop up recently. I've also seen some go away. I mean, you go back a couple years, there were a couple shows that existed that don't exist today.
Like IRC, were you thinking IRC?
Yeah.
Interesting. Because
And
that's
and
about this time of year, right?
I think so usually, yes.
Yes, yes.
But I mean, what do you think? You think that events is an interesting topic for both for us and for sellers and brands, because brands go to these events to interact with each other, to learn, to network, and we go there to interact with these brands as well. So it's
Yeah.
interesting to talk about this, I think.
There's so many changes, right? We talked last week about Rufus being rebranded as Alexa for shopping, and you've got these new platforms like TikTok. And I think the cliche comment here is that things are just moving faster than ever.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of like where brand owners are getting their information from, I think there's just a really interesting shift where people are getting together more and sort of craving higher quality conversations versus, all necessarily, reading ebooks and things like that. And
Yeah.
I know that's a big reason why we're doing this podcast to get out there more. I know that we're doing more events than we've ever done before. What I really like actually is the events that we did um, outside of Shop Talk, and we just were able to sit with these
Hmm.
brand operators. For me, one of the reasons I founded Teikametrics was, it was a need that I had as a seller myself, and it's just a chance to just get, more personal and talk with, brand operators, and I think that's what everyone's looking for. I know you were there with me. Um, I think that's what everyone wants. What do you think? And in
I
in a world where, especially if you're operating a brand, you're like, constantly in front of your computer,
yeah,
constantly,
yeah. Yeah,
working. It's a
absolutely.
chance to unplug.
I mean, I think a good question is how do brands and brand operators learn and grow today? Personal experience is probably going to be one. You just learn to implement. That kind of ties back to one of our first episodes, talk about the MCP protocol. Like,
Yes.
how do you learn? You implement. Another way to learn is going to events like this and interacting with other brands and other sellers that are at
Yeah.
your level or below
Yeah.
your level or above your level.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
do you
Yeah.
think, I mean, Alistair, you interact with a lot of these enormous
Yeah.
brands. How do you think these brands, like, do these brands learn by going, do they,
I think so. I think
okay.
what we're seeing, and this is what we're going to lean into more in the second half of the year, is there's so much talent out there, but people are really, really wanting to exchange information. And I think doing it in an in-person setting where there's so much AI, right? There's so much like, let's just talk to Claude or let's ask ChatGPT or whatever it may be. I think there's just a lot of demand for in person. And so, just to share what we're going to do, and I know you're going to work with the team on doing this, is we're going to be kicking off many more micro events and putting them together. And what I want us to do is put the best minds in the industry, the best operators from the world's best brands, and invite them into really more intimate settings in a comfortable place. And
Yeah.
obviously, give them that comfort level to talk about and exchange ideas. And I learned so much from bigger operators at larger companies, interacting with them. And I think that's the shift because, um, I think in general, it was those sort of smaller operators that were kind of considered as the pioneers. And I think, um, I learned a lot. So, that's what we're going to be doing a lot more of. What do you
Yeah.
think is the sort of the best event that we can put together?
What do I think is the best event that we could
Yeah,
put
what do
together?
you think? Yeah,
That's a really good question. Depends on who we're inviting to like who we are curating the event around, I think.
yeah,
I would imagine I've been to really good events in the past that are smaller, that aren't huge,
Yeah.
or that break out into smaller groups at a big event. So I've been to a couple masterminds in the e-commerce space, for example,
Yeah.
and these are
Yeah.
like high level sellers that are the multi-day process, everyone sharing insights together, everything they've learned, like everyone in
Yeah.
one room type thing.
Well,
And
I think
those
yeah.
mastermind operators sharing things I like, strategies I had never at the time heard of. I think that setting can be beneficial, especially for a high level operator. Um, but then that's different than like a shop talk that's huge and that
Yeah.
also has a benefit to a different degree. I'm curious what you think. Like,
I,
you said you
you
imagine maybe a more
what,
intimate setting?
as you're talking and I sort of reflect back into some of the conversations, I think, it's everyone is trying to ask the same thing.
Yeah,
How do I figure out how to use AI in the right way for my business? And there's such a FOMO of things moving so quickly. I know internally for us, we had most of the team using ChatGPT and then Gemini and now Claude, and that's just within 3 months, right? So I think what's driving this need to bring operators together and their need to go in person is there's a craving of not missing out, right? So
yeah,
I predict that you're going to have more operators wanting to be together. And if you can bring the best operators in one place, um, there's a lot of demand for that. And
mm,
I think, what we're hearing is, yeah, what are you doing with this MCP? Or can you, as we've done some conversations in this podcast of like, well, can I actually run my business with an MCP? What do you think? And trying all of that stuff. I was just at the TikTok Partner Awards event in New York City,
really.
and it was incredible. It was on a rooftop in Brooklyn. I was really fortunate to be invited there, and it was just like mind blowing because what TikTok did is they're really leveling it up. Um,
Mm.
they had an amazing party with Flowrider, which I thought was very entertaining. By the way, I think Amazon used Flowrider as well. So apparently he's making the circuits for e-commerce.
That's funny.
Outside of that, it was incredible because it was a global event, and I think TikTok is more of a global kind of phenomenon. And so they gave out awards for innovation in each of the major regions, and
Mm.
that was extremely cool. And they actually were showing some incredible stuff. Like they showed the Symphony API. Have you checked that out?
No, I have not. What is the Symphony AI API?
So TikTok's Symphony API is basically TikTok's own model. They're partnering with C-dance 2.0, which is the
Mm.
cutting edge avatar model. And basically, what TikTok is doing is they're going to allow us, and they're working with Teikametrics. We're really lucky to be one of their early partners to get API access to Symphony and C-Dance 2.0. And it's going to allow brand operators to create content on TikTok way cheaper
Wow.
and scale it out way faster. And I think why this is so significant is I think there's been a stigma that TikTok may penalize AI created content, and even it may hurt shopping.
Mm.
And so, what was fascinating for me is TikTok in the meeting and the presentations, product team giving these demos, and it's insane, Cameron. You've got to look it up. Have you seen some of these like avatars that are possible
I
to
have
create
I have from C-dance
influencers?
from C-dance,
Yeah,
yes, but I
yeah,
haven't heard of this API. I'm gonna have to
yeah,
look that up.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think that was just a place where I was in the same
Mm.
room as some of the most innovative agencies. I think for TikTok in particular, what's really driving the innovation is the agencies
Mm.
because it's less about technology and what we're used to, which is bidding and listings. It's a whole different optimization area, and it's all about creators. It's all about
Mm.
people, and this is where some of the best agencies are really shining. And so I was really impressed, and it's just incredible. And honestly, coming back to what we're talking about, I just do not think I would have got that level of exposure without getting in
Definitely
the
not.
room.
Definitely
And
not.
it was a good
It is kind of
example.
ironic, and I actually am curious to get your perspective on this the TikTok AI implementation. But I a thing that I always think of is it's kind of ironic. I feel like uh, that if you go to any of these events over the last year, almost every single topic. I mean, Shop Talk, Prosper, any other events that we went to, almost every single topic is basically AI. Like everyone
It
wants to
is. It
know
is.
about AI.
It is. It
And
is. I mean, yeah.
the timeless
Yeah, go ahead.
irony of I feel like thinking about we've talked about this, what elements of being human can't be replaced, won't be able to be replaced, even in the same degree, at least for a long, long time. The aspect of going in person to a conference like this or to how you went to TikTok, that can't be replicated in any other way right now. And the value of
Well, it's a
that is,
human. Well, I would say going to meet with other trusted people, because I think going to an event where you know is automatically, in a way, filtering the best people and the best operators creates a level of value because that's where you're going to be able to talk to really high quality people. Obviously, on internet forums or online, it's almost too easy, right? So this
yeah.
sort of screening, if you like, and so I think putting really strong operators in the same room and you apply this need and desire to just really get trusted advice.
Hmm.
And I think that's what people are craving. And then there's the FOMO, right? The FOMO of how do I actually use AI, truly use it to make my business better. And we're seeing it across every industry. And there's so many promises, and another thing to bring up actually is just there's so many companies offering AI this, AI that,
Yeah.
that I think it's hard for brand operators to truly cut through the noise.
Hmm.
And the only way that people can build trust is spending time in person. In a world that's all AI and tons of marketing is AI.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we're doing this podcast, right? Human in the loop. It's bringing a human aspect to this AI world, and I think that's what people want. People want more human in a world that's entirely AI, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, so Alistair, here's a question for you. Then how again, because you're interacting with these brands every day and you've been in this space for so long, how should these high level brands approach this in person strategy? How should they optimize for the in person interaction, going to these things of like finding the right events to attend?
Well, I was about to say, don't overthink it and just have fun. And
Hmm.
I would say that, don't overthink it and have fun. And, and just enjoy the casual aspect. I mean, that's when the best stuff happens, right? Over dinner, casual
Yeah.
conversation, less about like sitting at the booth with, Teikametrics or whoever, right? It's really over those sort of casual settings. So I think being open to that, and I would say, building relationships with other operators, that would be another piece of my advice. So I was able to sit down at dinner at the events that we've been going to. We've been putting on these dinners. It's been really fun, and just like immersing yourself with like-minded people who are open-minded and just open to sharing. In
Hmm.
terms of what events to go to, I mean, that is a tricky one, right? We're trying to deal with that as well. If someone's listening to this as a brand operator, thinking about, and if this is resonating about the FOMO or at least the desire to learn more about how do I really get AI leverage, I would just look for the most convenient, low stress option, and focus on that versus trying to necessarily head to
I
those
agree.
marquee events.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, yes, it's
I
true that the events will have a certain, Prosper as an example, traditionally more seller focused, more Amazon specific. I was really surprised and very pleasantly surprised that we were able to spend time with some huge operators there.
hmm
And so I think because you're going for that in person, one on one conversation, I wouldn't worry too much about having to, either pay or travel to all the necessary marquee events. And I think it's about the company. And even
I
better
agree.
if you can build a network of operators that you can stay in touch with and kind of head out to the same events. I think that would be my advice.
I think the standout, what you said, not overthinking it, I think that's a great way to look at it, especially with we're talking about kind of big events and also maybe trying to plug into some smaller ones too. Attending a big event and at the same time trying to find those smaller pockets that you can plug into, whether it be a dinner or a mastermind of sorts or smaller groups of people that you can plug into at a big event. I don't necessarily think it's about picking the right event, just the right event to go to. And if you don't pick the right one, you've missed out completely. But being able to plug into the right crowd at
Yes.
any event you go to, and with the right people, and they're probably going to be there. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of figuring out how to find them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, it's always easier to have get value from a work related event if you're having fun. So maybe that's the best advice of all. Just like pick an event that you think you'll have fun at and it won't be stressful. That's when you'll have the open conversation. That's when you'll be able to engage with, meet new people, exchange ideas. And I would say that that's, the most important thing. Have fun doing it.
Pick an event with Flo Rida.
Yeah. Yeah. Or multiple events with Friday Rider in my
Yeah,
case
yeah,
over the last year.
yeah, more
Yeah.
than one. Great advice and insight for from an event perspective. I think this is a good conversation to just help people keep events in mind as
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
get progress throughout the year, especially.
Well, we're going to do some of that. And so, if anyone's listening to this, and we're going to hopefully get in touch with you and invite you to one of those events. So, looking forward to seeing you. And, thanks, Cameron, for all of the
Absolutely.
good discussion, as
Yeah. Thanks,
always.
Alistair.